What will my mother say? It wasn't until a few years ago, at the age of 44, that this question, or some variation of it, didn't get asked before, during, or after every decision that I made. The question sounded a little bit like, how will I tell her? How will she react? How can I spin this exactly right? I was 44 years old before I stopped asking, what will my mother say? 44 before I realized that I was looking at the world through the eyes of my 11-year-old self. 44 before I realized that what I was really asking was, am I enough? And I wonder if this sounds familiar to you, this looking outwards to understand your own value. Being the good boy, the good girl, the good employee, the good student, the good whatever. Just trapped in this cycle of seeking external validation and the voices of your past, of your present, your mothers, your bosses, your partners, societal norms determining your decisions. The whispers of your own voice silenced by the shout of others. But what if I told you that there was a way, a method that allows you not only to understand the lens with which you perceive the world and others, but also how to reshape your perspective and find validation from within? And what if I told you that I'm going to tell you how you can right now? This need for acceptance and validation, particularly from my mother, followed me throughout my life. From 11-year-old me who would hear her mother's voice call from the hallway of the family home in that tone of rules and boundaries when I had other things I wanted to do. It followed me into adolescence when I did the things that I wanted, secretly, of course, and then struggled later with the feeling of guilt and deep shame that even though the ideas did not make any sense to me, I was disappointing my mother's established ideas of what was appropriate and good. Followed me into my 20s as I left for university in England to explore and allow myself to engage in all the things I wasn't supposed to do at home, like spend the night with boys or stay out past 11 p.m. And it followed me into my career as an academic and as I began my own successful and thriving practice as a professional therapist. Yes, I am a therapist with mother issues. It followed me for most of my life, this need for approval and validation of my enoughness, up until 4 years ago. I have a husband, and I can be an adult in that relationship most of the time. I have 2 kids, I own a home, I've been on the news. But why was it that as we would drive up to my childhood home and I would slide out of the car, putting one foot down onto the familiar stone pavement, I could feel this heaviness descend upon me. And as I would cross the threshold, the transformation would be complete. I would enter the house in the body of a 44-year-old professional woman, but with the eyes and perspective of my 11-year-old self. Sometimes I'd make it up the stairs, or even halfway through dinner before I could feel that familiar tightness in my stomach, the constriction in my throat, and the eye roll that had been the start of many a lecture in my lifetime start at one side of my face and roll all the way across to the other. I had long grown out of my 11-year-old body, grown out of my 11-year-old mind. I had expanded her heart, her brain, her education, her worldliness, her relationships, her work. And yet, in every decade of my life, I never outgrew the need to find validation outside of myself, to feel enough and like I belonged. This need to belong, it's not unusual at any age. We all need to belong, not just to ourselves, but to something, to someone, to love and to be loved. It's one of our core needs as human beings. But we are taught to look for this outside of ourselves, for this evidence of belonging and the validation of our enoughness. And as we grow and develop in every other part of our life, as our needs change and shift with new relationships, new learnings, new roles, something stops us from growing our strategy of how we meet the need of belonging and validation. And it follows us through every version of me and every version of you in every stage of our life until we understand how to walk a different path. And it starts with something that I call me, not me. Me, not me is a system I created that allows my clients to see in any situation how they are accountable, how the other person may be accountable, and to also step outside of themselves and observe what is happening from a more detached place. Stepping outside of ourselves and creating an opportunity to respond instead of react to a situation. It's like a recipe made of different therapeutic frameworks. A dash of cognitive behavioral therapy, a bit of emotional focused therapy, and a generous handful of mindfulness, and a few others. But in essence, it's a method of inquiry that asks ourselves, could I interpret this in a different way? Or more simply, what is happening here? Here's an example. Have you ever walked down the street and smiled at someone, and instead of smiling back, they just shoot you a glare, or they simply ghost your warm invitation to connect? And immediately you think, do I have something in my teeth? Is my hair a mess? Did I do something wrong? Or even, I can't believe they ignored me like that. Me, not me, allows you to reframe your interpretation of that encounter by stepping into the mind of the other person first, stepping out of me and into not me. Maybe they were singing a song in their head. Maybe they were rehearsing answers for a job that they desperately wanted. Maybe they had just had some bad news. Or maybe they didn't see me. Me, not me, allows you to check in with yourself and see what stories you might be contributing. Oh, yeah, there's that nagging ego trying to keep me safe from rejection. There's that part of me that needs to be liked to feel enough. Oh, and my favorite, there's that part of me that does the rejecting before getting rejected. Me, not me, gives you a choice in that moment to feel rejected and angry or lean into a different possibility, a more empathic one, or just one that removes you from being responsible for how other people react and to be accountable for your own self. Because I can tell you that part of what is happening is simply not about you at all. And part of what is happening is about the various versions of you that are still unconsciously engaging in fear-based behaviors that no longer serve you. You see, we all attach stories to the events in our lives. And most of the meanings that we make up are the ones that can validate the deeper beliefs that we hold about whether or not we are worthy of acceptance. I remember a moment when I was 19. I was leaving my parents' house to go visit a boyfriend that my mother did not approve of. And I recall seeing her face, waving goodbye to me from the window of our home. And at the time, I really recognized this look as control, displeasure, and judgment about the choices that I was making. But when I look back now using me, not me, I simply recognize it as worry and concern. I use her eyes to view the situation. The eyes of a mother hoping her daughter would finish her education before falling in love. Or worse, getting pregnant and not having choices in how she wants to live her life, stuck and dependent on someone else. Something that may have reflected her own story. So can you see how the meaning of the moment changes when I step out of me and into not me? It wasn't just my actions that were causing the look on my mother's face. And then when I step back into me, I can see how my own stories are impacting the situation. Our culture, our upbringing, our relationships, the learnings that we have at every age, our stereotypes, prejudices, biases, our wisdoms, and the stories that we make up about those things all impact how we view the world, how we view others, and how we view ourselves. But if finding acceptance was this easy, I would have gotten the hang of it well before 44. And that's because stepping out of ourselves and changing the aspects of the story that we amplify is only part of the strategy. What finally made me stop asking, "What will my mother say?" was the revelation that me, not me, is just the doorway to the next level work. Something I call me, now me. This revelation was gifted to me by my then 9-year-old daughter, Anya, the perfect mirror. One day, we were having a really heated discussion, as mothers and daughters often do, and she wanted to do something that I didn't want her to do, and she was frustrated and upset with me because my definition of appropriate and good was different from hers. Yes, we see the parallels of my childhood here. And I said to her, "I really feel for you, Anya. I understand how you feel because this is what it was like when I was younger, and I felt my mom wasn't letting me be free or express myself. But now that I'm a mother, I understand her position. I can see it from your grandmother's point of view." I was very proudly doing me, not me. But then Anya looked at me and she said, "But can you see it from yours? Can you just empathize with 9-year-old Natasha right now?" And at first, I was totally taken aback at the articulate nature and directness of her question. She was 9 at the time. And then I thought about it. And I said, yes, I can. And it was in that moment, at the age of 44, with my current wisdom, offer 9-year-old me, 11-year-old me, 20-year-old me, all the versions of me, the safety and validation that she had been seeking. I began to recognize not just the ability to see things from other people's lenses, but to see things from the lens of who I am now. Now me is a much wiser version of me. She has education, worldliness, experiences, relationships, and training that have allowed her to grow so profoundly in every other way. To get married, buy a home, raise children, travel the world, start a thriving therapy practice, and even smile at strangers on the street who don't smile back and not wonder if she is cool enough or good enough to know. She is a much fuller version of me. capable of empathy, compassion, reframing, of seeing, hearing, and understanding people, and most importantly, of offering those things to herself. Now me is a pretty great me, and I wasn't utilizing her to the fullest potential. She knows where acceptance and validation comes from within. Me, not me, was the first revelation in understanding. It's a lens or a tool that allows you to shift your perspective and go between your feelings and the feelings of others without losing yourself in the process. But as I stood there listening to Anya's innocent wisdom, I realized that if me, not me, was about external understanding and perspective, me, now me, was about introspection and self-acceptance. It wasn't just about having empathy for others. It was about harnessing the wisdom and experience of who I've become now. And suddenly, it felt like another layer of inner knowing had been uncovered. Now me is more than capable of providing my own approval to every version of me that shows up from the past, looking to be seen, looking to be heard, and looking to be understood. Now me is able to give all the other versions of me the validation that she seeks. When the 9-year-old shows up, the 13-year-old, the 30-year-old, and in finding my own voice and my own power, I have also found the acceptance and love that I craved. And the good news is, now me and now you are enough. You don't have to wait until you're 44 to recognize your wholeness, your enoughness. We have choice and power right now. We have agency to create the response that we want and that serves us best. Sometimes we just need a few tools, or maybe a little 9-year-old mirror. My invitation to you is to use these strategies, me, not me, and me, now me, and see how this shifts your relationship with others, but more importantly, how it shifts your relationship with yourself. This approach has the power to release us from our past narratives, allowing us to validate our past selves with the wisdom and compassion of our current self, validating our enoughness from within, allowing us to hear the whispers of our own voice above the roar of the crowd. And as I look back at this whole journey, I have to thank my mother, who I know will say, "I told you so." And I will receive that, not with an eye roll, but with the love and pride that I know she feels as I switch from asking, "What would my mother say?" and start asking, "What would I say?" Thank you.